Hello, my name is Matthew Franz, and welcome to Business Analysts Reporting for Accountants. In this series, we're breaking down the skills accountants actually need to think like business analysts, not just recording numbers, but using them to explain what's happening in a business and predict what might happen next. If you're studying for the CPA bar exam, this content is built to help you connect the technical material to real-world decision-making. We'll cover topics like budgeting, forecasting, variance analysis, and performance reporting, and more importantly, how companies actually use these tools to run their operations. The goal here isn't to just help you pass the exam, it's to help you understand how accounting data turns into business insight. Let's get started. Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Franz and welcome back to Business Analysts Reporting for Accountants. Today we're going to cover a fundamental concept for anyone working in a manufacturing finance or you're preparing for the CPA bar exam, and how costs flow through a manufacturing operation, how they behave, and what drives them. Understanding this is the foundation for variance analysis, budgeting, and cost decision making. And the best part, we'll be using Excel to make this visual so you can see exactly how costs move. Let's get started. Before we jump into the Excel file, let's talk about what a cost analyst does in a manufacturing environment. Their job revolves around three main questions. What did we spend? Why did it change? And what will happen next? To answer these questions, we first need to understand how costs move through the factory and what drives them. This is where today's lesson comes in. So let's open the Excel sheet called Manufacturing Cost Flow, and you should see a link down underneath this video. Here you can see 4 stages: raw materials, work in progress, and finished goods, and cost of goods sold. Raw materials are materials you purchased but haven't used yet. For example, steel, plastic, or packaging. Work in process is where your product is being built. At this stage, we have direct materials, direct labor, and applied manufacturing overhead. Finished goods are completed but unsold products. And cost of goods sold is when the product is sold, that cost hits the income statement. If you look at the numbers, you'll see total costs moving from stage to stage. As a cost analyst, one of your key jobs is monitoring these flows. For example, if WIP is increasing faster than production is finishing, that could signal a bottleneck in the factory. Now let's move to cost behavior. Cost behavior tells us how costs react to changes in production volume. There are 3 types. Fixed costs. These are costs that stay same regardless of production. An example might be factory rent or supervisor's salary. Variable costs, costs that move directly with the production volume. And this is an example of raw materials or direct labor hours. Then we have mixed costs, a combination of fixed and variable. Example might be factory electricity with a base fee plus usage. You'll see columns showing the total costs of 10,000 units versus 15,000 units. Notice how the fixed costs stay the same. And variable costs increase. and mixed costs increase partially. This is why flexible budgets are so important in manufacturing. You can just compare actual to a static budget. Some costs are expected to move as production changes. Finally, let's talk about cost drivers. Cost drivers are the activities that actually cause costs to occur. Understanding these is critical to predicting and controlling costs. Common cost drivers include machine hours, labor hours, units produced, and setup counts. Machine hours are often used in automated production. Labor hours are used for manual assembly work. Units produced, sometimes general overhead. And setup counts are important for custom production. Looking at the Excel sheet, we can see total costs tied to each driver. For example, 4,000 machine hours at $8 per hour gives us 32,000. As an analyst, you track these drivers to explain why costs change. And right now, I'm going to show you a formula, although you probably already know this, but we will do this, 4,000 times the 8, and that will give us our number. If production costs rise 8%, it's not just enough to report the number. We ask, did volume change? Did labor efficiency drop? Did materials go up? Did scrap increase? That mindset separates a cost analyst from a bookkeeper. This connects directly to the CPA bar topics like variance analysis, flexible budgeting, and performance management, the difference between actual and expected cost, and understanding why is exactly what bar asks you to analyze. So today we covered manufacturing cost flow, cost behavior, cost drivers, and in a little bit we'll move into variance analysis, where we calculate and explain the difference between actual costs and what we expected. Don't forget, understanding these fundamentals is what allows you to think like a cost analyst and make financial insights actionable. So if you're preparing for the CPA bar or aiming for a financial analyst role, this is the type of thinking that separates average accountants from top performers. All right. Now let's have some fun with some bar-style questions, which would be Day 1 Cost Manufacturing Foundations. So question 1, a company purchases 50,000 of steel for production. 20,000 of this steel has been used in production. 30,000 remains in inventory, which accounts are affected. So which accounts are affected? Well, only the materials actually used from raw materials to whip, the rest stays in inventory. Cost of goods sold is not affected until the finished goods are sold. So your answer is B. Question 2. Which of the following is a fixed cost in a manufacturing plant? Plant manager salary. It does not change with production volume within the relevant range. Electricity and materials are variable. Labor can be variable if paid per unit. If production doubles, which costs increase proportionally? Variable costs change directly with production. Fixed costs stay the same, and mixed costs increase partially, so the answer is B. Question 4. Which of the following is a product cost? Well, product costs equal direct materials plus direct labor plus material overhead. Marketing and corporate rent are period costs and expensed immediately, so the answer is C. Question 5. A company identifies machine hours as the key cost driver. Which type of cost is most likely allocated based on this driver? Well, machine hours drive manufacturing overhead allocation. Examples, depreciation or electricity for machines. So the answer is B. Question 6. A company has 5,000 base electricity cost plus $1.50 per machine hour. For 10,000 machine hours, what is the total electricity cost? So the total cost is the fixed portion plus variable portion times activity equals 5,000 plus the 10,000 times the $1.50, and that equals 20,000. Question 7. Which of the following best describes a cost driver? Cost drivers explain why costs occur. So examples might be machine hours, labor hours, setup counts. So the answer is B, an activity that causes costs to be incurred. Question 8. During production, work in process increased by 10,000, while raw materials decreased by 10,000. What does this indicate? Materials moved from inventory to WIP because they were consumed in production. So B. Material was used in production. Question 9. If raw materials costs rise 10%, which type of cost and cost behavior is primarily affected? Well, raw materials are direct materials costs, usually variable and increasingly proportionally with usage and price. So the answer is B, direct material, which is variable. Question 10. A production line has 4,000 machine hours. Each machine hour drives $8 of overhead. If machine hours increase to 5,000, the total overhead is applied. Or the total overhead applied is. So we take the $8 times 5,000, and that would be 40,000, B. Welcome back to Business Analyst Reporting for Accountants. In today's video, we're going to take the manufacturing cost data we learned yesterday and add variance analysis and flexible budgeting. This is how cost analysts figured out why actual costs differ from expected costs, and it's exactly the type of thinking tested on the CPA bar exam. By the end of this video, you will be able to calculate and interpret material, labor, and overhead variances, and even test different production scenarios in Excel. So yesterday, we learned how costs flow through a factory, from raw materials to WIP to finished goods to COGS, and how costs behave, fixed, variable, and mixed. Today we're going to go one step further, comparing actual costs versus standard costs and figuring out what caused the differences. So as you see, I added two columns, actual and a standard, and a variance. I entered different sample numbers. And here's where cost analysts start comparing what we expected to spend to what actually happened. You'll notice that some costs are higher and some are lower. Each tells a story. Now we can see the differences numerically. For example, material variance is 2,000, and that is highlighted red as unfavorable. We spent more than what was expected. The labor variance was good, and this was very favorable, and we spent less than expected. Overhead is 2,000, which is also unfavorable. And how I did this conditional formatting, I went up here and I did highlight rules. Greater than 0 was red and less than 0 was green. Conditional formatting makes it easier to see which areas need attention. You don't have to hunt through the numbers. Red flags the problem and green shows efficiency. Thanks for watching this session of Business Analyst Reporting for Accountants. I hope you found it helpful in connecting accounting concepts to real-world business analysts. If you're studying for the CPA bar exam, remember, understanding the why behind the numbers is just as important as knowing the rules. Keep practicing, reviewing, and applying these concepts. That's how you turn knowledge into insight. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. And if you have any questions or topics you want me to cover, drop them in the comments. I'll make sure to get to them. Until next time, keep analyzing, keep learning, and stay curious.